Welcome back to Maths in an Empty Classroom with me, Mr. Sutton. We are looking at sketching Lund graphs this evening. This is the first example that I'm going to go through. We're going to be sketching the graph with equation y equals ln of 4x minus 1. And as I mentioned in the introduction to this lesson, the three key things that we've got to get right with these graphs are the shape, the intercepts and the asymptote. What I'm actually going to start with this one is how to find the equation of the asymptote. Now you'll remember in the introduction to this that we said you cannot ln 0. Okay. So what we need to think about is, okay, well, what we're learning here, this bracket 4x minus 1, if that can't equal 0, well, let's solve it equal to 0, and that's going to tell us what the asymptote is. So 4x minus 1, which is the bit in the bracket, equals 0. If we solve that equation, we get x equals 1/4. And what that means, that is the asymptote. So that's the x value that we're not allowed to have, because if we made x that value, the bracket would be 0, and we're not allowed to learn 0. Okay. So straight away, I can draw in my dashed vertical line for my asymptote, which is x equals 1/4. And then I need to think about my intercepts. First intercept that I'm going to think about is my y-intercept. Now to find the y-intercept, I'm going to make x equal 0. So if I do that, y equals ln of 4 lots of 0 minus 1. I get ln of -1. Now I can't learn -1, that is invalid. So the fact that this doesn't exist, it's not a real number, means that there is no y-intercept. So I can conclude from that that there is no y-intercept. And to get the x-intercept, I'm going to make y equal 0. So I have y equals ln of 4x minus 1. But I'm going to make y equal 0. Now, inverse ln, what's the opposite of ln? Well, the opposite of ln is to e. So e to the power of 0 is going to equal 4x minus 1. Now that's important because what we're doing is we're putting e to the power of 0 to perform that inverse operation. E to the power of ln on this right hand side of the equation is cancelled out, which is why I'm just left with the bracket. E to the power of 0 is a number to the power of 0 is 1. So I have 1 equals 4x minus 1, which leads me through to x equals 1/2. So I have an x-intercept of 1/2, 0. Just think carefully about where you're drawing this. X equals 1/4, 1/2, 0. 1/2 is bigger than 1/4, so therefore the x-intercept must be on this side of the asymptote. I know it doesn't cross the y-axis, and therefore my graph looks like this. So that is the point 1/2, 0, and that is the line with equation y equals ln of 4x minus 1. An alternative way potentially of thinking about that is 4x minus 1 inside the bracket. The transformation is it's shifted 1 to the right and then stretched it by scale factor 1/4 in the x direction, and that's why this curve looks very similar to the original y equals ln x. But there you go. Asymptote, you make the bracket equal 0. Y-intercept, you make x equal 0. In this case, we got an invalid number, so there was no y-intercept. X-intercept, you make y equal 0, solve it, job done. There's your sketch. I'll see you for the next one.